afternoon, everyone. My name is Bo Munt. I am a senior consultant out here with Implementation Specialists. Today, I guess we have a topic for a lot of you that I find interesting as far as your day-to-day jobs, managing Dynamics GP as a systems administrator. So, there's a lot of times when you need to do kind of some run-of-the-mill maintenance or some tasks that you don't necessarily want to call your partner for. You're very capable of handling yourself, but kind of wanted to go over some of those, or maybe you guys want to start managing them yourself instead of calling us for all your little things that pop up, some of the easy maintenance and things like that. So basically today, I'm just going to go over some of those with you guys. Some of the common scenarios, little tips, little tricks, things like that, and I guess we'll just get started. So, managing Dynamics GP as a systems administrator. So, of course, server maintenance. Oh, hang on here. It's supposed to go on mouse click, apparently not. So, we're going to start off with server maintenance. So, of course, types of Windows or maintenance or Windows updates, things like software patches, service packs, maybe network maintenance, antivirus, maybe DR testing. I'm betting a lot of you guys don't do enough DR testing. We find that a lot where, a customer thinks they have good backups, but they find out they don't. So server maintenance can be a little bit of anything. You need to take your server down. And I'm going to kind of cover some of the things that you pretty much always want to do whenever you're going to go and plan to take SQL or GP down and, get those updates installed and those service packs installed and things like that. So, to start it off, we're going to go with the maintenance preparation. And it's still going to automatically go here. Okay, so first thing I always want to do when I'm going into a system, whether it's for an upgrade or for any kind of maintenance, service packs, hot fixes, we just need to get users out of the system, right? First thing I always do is I'm a SQL guy. I'm always in SQL, so I'll do a select star from Dynamics .activity. So your select star grabs your list of users, and your Dynamics is your database. The activity table is who is in GP at the moment. So that'll give you a list of your users. I have a screenshot right here of the user ID, company name they would be in, when they logged in, the dates and the times. So you can tell if it's a current login. If it was from a few days ago and you know that they're not in the office right now, it maybe got stuck or maybe they crashed and they just logged out and left the system hanging. So it could not be a valid login that you can just clean out. There's another way of getting this information, which some people like, is right inside of GP. You can go to Tools, Utilities, System, and User Activity. I'll show you that here. So inside of GP, you click on your Microsoft Dynamics GP icon. Excuse me, I have a cold too, so I apologize for any coughing you may hear. Select down to Tools, go down to Utilities, and under System, you're going to see User Activity. So in my test company, of course, right now I'm the only one logged into it. But you can actually see the users that are logged in, the company they're in, the date and time they logged in, and the client type. So, if you do have the web client deployed, you'll be able to see that this is a web client as well. So it'll show a desktop client, where that's your standard fat client on your desktop, whereas your web client would show web. So the other nice part about that is you can actually remove those users right out of this table from here as well. So I'll cover that a little bit later. The SQL side of things, the same type of deal here. I'll just show you that a bit here. So I have mine named a little bit differently because I have multiple instances of GP running on my system just for testing purposes. But from Dyn 16 activity, and here we'll see the essays logged in. It's pretty much the exact same view that you would get from that window right in GP there. So as you can see here, first thing you always want to do is just see who's in the system. It's time for your maintenance, but has everyone gotten out? Can you just, when you hop in, are you the only one in there, or do you have 10 users you need to get a hold of and get them out of the system? which kind of goes into the next the part of it there. So say you have some users in. If you're like on a terminal server or a Citrix server, first thing you want to check for is, say you see some users in activity, check for an open dynamics.exe in your task manager. And if you're not familiar with that, it's as simple as just right-clicking on your taskbar down at the bottom and going to Start Task Manager. And there's a couple different ways of doing it. You can look in applications if for your own, if you have a hung GP or something like that. But typically I'll go to Processes or Detail or something like that if it's on a server. And you want to sort by the image name and search for dynamics.exe. And then at that point you can just right-click it and hit End Process to basically see who's in the server. So in my example here, one of our customers, you can see they have multiple users connected to their terminal server, all running dynamics.exe. So they're running GP from that terminal server at the same time. So I would basically be able to, here's my list of users here, which I have blurred out, but I'd be able to contact those guys and say, hey, we need to do maintenance. Can you please log out of GP? Another way is looking for your open files. So, if you're on a server, like a file server where you have a shared dictionary, if you've ever experienced a type of an upgrade where you're, trying to update your modified forms and reports, and you think, oh gosh, everyone's out of the system. Why can't I upgrade this? What's going on? And you'll realize that, well, maybe someone who's not on a terminal server that, you killed their dynamics.exe, right? On the terminal server, but someone who has a client installed on their workstation maybe left GP open. Well, that's still going to maintain a connection to the forms and reports dictionary if you have anything modified. So the next thing you want to do if you have that shared file location is go out there and check your open files under your shares. So if you're on that file server, you go to your computer management and you'll go to shared files or shared folders and then open files. And we can see in here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people with the forms dictionary open. Same with the HR and the reports dictionaries. So as you can see in this case here, there's 4 users that are in the system. They've all got their modified forms and reports opened. So in this case here, if we know they're out of the system, we basically just want to right-click that and break the connection. So it stops them from accessing those dictionaries, and then you can upgrade them without fear of any corruption or anything like that. The next thing you want to look at is, say you have those users who are in the system, but you know that they're actually at their desk and they're actually working, and you need to get a hold of them. You can get them out of the system a couple different ways. Of course, you can just call them up and say, hey, Bob, I need you out. But I don't know if you were aware, you can actually send users a message right in GP. If you click on Tools again and go to Utilities, System, and then Send Users Message, you can select your users in the system and type in your message and hit Send. I'll show that to you here real quick. Close our activity. So again, we'd go to Tools, Utilities, System, Send Users Message. So we click on this right here. And in a production system, your list will probably be a lot more full with all of your users logged into it. And what you can do, there's 2 different options in here. One, you can just send a quick notification for people who are currently logged in. So you can say, hey, I need you out of the system right now. We're performing maintenance. Maybe it's an emergency maintenance or, a scheduled maintenance, but they're just not getting out yet. So you can say, please log out of GP. And you can just hit that notification message right there and hit Send. And, after a few seconds, once it hits your SQL server and then bounces back to all your GP users, you'll have it pop up on their screen. And I'll just give it a second here. And it should, any second, pop up on my screen here, telling me to log out of GP. And any second. Switch over here. So as you can see, here's my test message. It says, please log out of GP for scheduled maintenance. So that would pop up on my screen. So, for whatever window you're on, it just pops right to the front and they say, oh, I forgot about this maintenance. Let me get out. The other option on there was this task with reminder. I'll pop back in GP here. Now I can see that window has popped up here. So in GP, it says please log out of GP. So that's that message that I just sent. So the other option in here is to set a task with reminder. So this is the one that you can set as a ahead of time message, right? Like, so say it's you know, Friday morning and you have maintenance scheduled for Friday night. So you can do the same type of deal where you can say, you know, don't forget we have maintenance tonight. So the next time they log in, they'll get a task that pops up and it says scheduled maintenance tonight at 5 p.m. Don't forget to log out. So that way they go, oh yeah, I can't, you know, make sure that I have that on my calendar or something like that so they don't forget. Makes it a lot easier to manage. I don't know if you've been in that situation where, you know, it's one thing when you have 5 or 10 users, but when you're trying to manage 100 and some users to get out of the system, it can be pretty hectic trying to get, you know, that message across to everyone that, hey, you guys need to be out of the system right now so we can get this scheduled maintenance done. So there's just two really simple ways to do that to get those guys out. So the next thing you're going to say, right, is, well, what happens when they don't respond to me? Well, you can forcibly remove them. You know, sometimes they just forget to log out. Maybe they forget to close GP. They just locked their computer and left for the day. There's a couple different ways of doing it. Of course, there is the old SQL way. In the Dynamics database on the activity table, the user ID column, you know, like say you want to delete the specific user, in my case, bmonth. So I can remove that user's activity table based on their user ID. I'm sorry, activity record based on their user ID. And that will basically remove them from GP. Now, of course, that will not actually close their client. So that'll remove the record from the table. So as far as GP is concerned, it's not in the system. But now you go back to like that previous slide where it would show open files. You know, if they left GP open, you could still have someone stuck in the reports.dic, and you know, that could, you may have to go out there and, you know, break that connection as well, or go turn off their computer or something like that just to get them completely out of the system. So, you know, the next thing is too, right, if you're logged into GP and you just need everyone out and, you know, it's an emergency or something like that, you can do the delete activity where user ID is not equal to like SA. So say you're logged in and you just need everyone out of the system right now. You've scheduled your maintenance. No one's in the office. You're the only one there. You know everyone's down, but there's still 5 people in the system. You can just wipe them out of the system nice and quickly that way. And then, of course, next is the actual using the user activity window that I showed you guys earlier. You can actually click on that user in there and hit the delete button, and that will delete them as well. So it's really a manual, or not a manual process, but not having to go into SQL and do it the same process as this top line right here, just doing it through a GUI. So, you know, we'd always recommend trying to, you know, unless you're very comfortable in SQL, just using this GUI. It's a great system to use and just makes managing GP that much easier. So now that you've got everyone out of the system, I think the next thing you're going to want to do is take your company offline. If there's a chance, right, that maybe someone could, you know, connect in from home or VPN in and want to do some work or something like that. Maybe they forgot of this maintenance outage again. So you're going to want to go to Tools, Utilities, System, and hit this Take Company Offline. I will show you that. This is one of the newer features. System, Take Company Offline. So in my test company here, I can select Fabricam, and I'm just going to insert that over here, and it says there's one user online, and that's me, of course. You can send a message, just says this company is currently offline for maintenance, please try again later. You know, say you have 10 companies, 20 companies, 100 companies, you know, you can do an insert all and just grab all of them. You can, you know, shift click, control click, things like that, whichever ones you want. So since I'm SA, I can be in the company while it's offline. So there is no risk of you taking it offline and all of a sudden, well, how do I get back into it? So I'm going to take it offline for you here. It says there's user logged in because that's just me. I'm not going to send myself a message. And now when I go to, say where to log into GP, you'll see right here in my drop-down company, it says Fabricam here, and it's got the star offline. So now that's a little visual prompt for a user that says, oh, that's right, we got maintenance tonight, I'll go do something else. They try and log into it. In normal cases, if you were not SA, you would get a message that says, you can't log in, the company is currently offline for maintenance, please try again later. In our case, because of we're SA, we can log into that system. It'll still pop you up and say, this is currently offline for maintenance, but would you like to still log in or not? And you just hit yes. So that way, it's at least a visual reminder to say, multiple, a lot of companies have multiple sysadmins and things like that. So maybe they're not paying attention and doing something else and go, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot, one of my counterparts is doing some maintenance tonight. So, so that's how you basically do that. And then of course, when you're complete with your maintenance, basically do the opposite, and you'll mark your company and remove and take it back online now. So now you'll see Fabricam here shows that it's online, and when we log back in, we won't get that message. We'll just get the typical sample data company message, and as I log in, back to normal. All right, what do we got next here? So just a few more screenshots of the taking the company offline here. I showed the offline options. Next part for maintenance is backups. The first thing, especially with GP and any type of SQL maintenance, even server maintenance in general, is running a backup before you do your maintenance. Whether it's a snapshot or a system backup, something like that, just in case something goes wrong. It doesn't happen often, but I'll tell you, you'll be glad you did it when you take that backup and then you realize you completely blew something away or deleted something, did something incorrectly because you were in a hurry or something like that, and you just need to restore and start over. And that will it'll save you, a lot of stress when you have that available. If you've ever been in a situation where you realize you forgot to take that backup and you just deleted something that you needed, you're in your own luck. It's a sinking feeling, not a good thing. So run your backups as soon as you're done with your maintenance, or as soon as you're ready to perform your maintenance, and you've got everyone out of the system. Run your backups. Get that done right away. Take a snapshot if it's a virtual machine. Get your maintenance done at that point. So get your Windows updates installed. Get your software service packs, GP upgrade, whatever it is that you're doing. Get that part done. When everything's done and happy, go ahead and bring your company back online. So like I showed you, the tools, utilities, system, and then take company offline. And now you select your company and bring it back online. And users can get back in once your maintenance is complete. And then at that point too, don't forget, you don't want to run multiple snapshots on a virtual machine. So once everything has been determined that it is good and stable, make sure you delete your snapshot and merge it back into the image on your virtual machine. Once it's all been determined that it's stable. So some of the day-to-day support issues I wanted to talk about. These are some of the things that we get calls about all the time. Probably a bulk of our volume, but it's stuff that you guys, we always want to try and empower our customers. So it's stuff that you guys could easily do on your own. We'll get a call from a customer that, hey, GP's locked up. I don't know what else to do. There's two easy things, depending on your environment. One is just an end task. So say that, GP is hung and they were posting something or something like that, and it just sat there and sat there and sat there and never came back. So you can, end your process under dynamics.exe. Again, that was as simple as just right-clicking down on this bottom taskbar, going to that task manager, and then finding your dynamics.exe in that list, and then hitting end process down here, or right-clicking it and hitting end process. Again, you can also go to the applications and hit Dynamics GP and hit end task. I prefer end process because it actually kind of forcibly kills it. So it seems to end a little bit smoother, but because the end task, I don't know, it doesn't quite always come out of the process as well usually. So And then, of course, the other scenario is that maybe you have users on a terminal server, like I showed you earlier, where you've got multiple users connected to a system. 99% of them are working fine, but one user locked up doing a process. So just that one person, you don't want to kill dynamics.exe for every one of them. You just want to kill it for that one person. So you can either go back in and try and kill their dynamics.exe for the specific user ID, or if they show like disconnected, or even if they don't show disconnected, you can usually right-click their user ID under Task Manager again. You'll have a Users tab on your, if you have a terminal server, like on a workstation like this, you'll only see one user typically, unless someone's going to be remoted in or something like that. But you can usually right-click their name and hit Sign Off. Now, you don't want to do like disconnect or something like that, because disconnect will basically just, it's like hitting the X on your terminal server connection. It'll maintain the connection and any applications running in the background for a set amount of time. So it won't actually kill those processes hung in the background. Or if you hit sign off or log off, it will actually end all those processes. So that way when they reconnect to the terminal server, whether it's through a remote app or through a remote desktop, they'll get a fresh session and they'll be able to start over from scratch. The next thing, so they were locked up, right? So now they get back into GP and they say, oh, that batch I was trying to post is now stuck. 9 times out of 10, they can go into just batch recovery and usually mark that batch, hit continue, and it'll either continue off posting where it left off, or it'll at least bring it back to where it was functional before they locked up. So if you're familiar with that message, you'll log into GP and you'll say, hey, posting was interrupted. Please go to batch recovery, and you'll be able to go to the tools, routines, batch recovery. I think I have a bad batch in here to look at. And we can see, so I'll mark that batch right here, hit continue, and what it'll try and do is basically continue off where it left off. So I'm going to just print these on the screen here real quick. Actually, maybe I'll just cancel some of these, and we'll see what it does. So this batch here looks like it's not really recoverable right now, so it's going to probably go back out to my batches, and I'll have to fix it on the front end. But in that case, there's other places you can look to see what is going on with it. So as we can see here, this batch is stuck in posting now, but it's available to view. So if you look at my slides here, the next part, so we got the batch out of recovery, and there are 2 key tables that we always want to look at when it comes to batches. The Dynamics database, the SY00500 and the 00800. So the 500 will be your batch header information that will tell you the status that it's in, the number of transactions, things like that, whether it's marked to post or not. And then the 800 is kind of your lock records. So if we go back into SQL and we look here at that 00500, SY00 500. Or I'm sorry, no, it's not dynamic. It's company 216. There we are. So we look under the company database. I'm sorry, I have listed the dynamic database. It's the company database and the SY00500 table. So we will see now, I had that batch named test, and let's see here, where is it? So here we'll see test. That one's under sales entry. There's a test under receivables. I have obviously lots of test ones right here, but here's the one that was having issues under the PM. We can see here that there's 1 transaction in it, and the ones that the areas we want to look at in here that usually kind of tell us what's going on is going to be the batch status. So it's BCH STTUS. Right there we can see 1. And The other one is the mark to post, which is way over here, which is 1 as well. So typically, if we want to get this batch back to a state where we want to just see what's in it and potentially update it to to usable state, what I'll do is I'll take the DEX row ID, which is that last column. It's going to be unique to each row in that table. So DEX row is equal to, so we're going to take 73. So now it gives me this single row. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just change those two values. So we're going to do an update MKDTO, PST, or I'm sorry, update SY 0500 set mark to post and BCHSTT equal to 0, and then I want to do the where DEX row ID is equal to 73. So what that's going to do is it's going to update this batch, basically setting it back to where it was. Let's just do it like this. That won't work. Oh, that's why. There we go. I've got to pay attention to what I'm writing in there. So we set those both back to 0. So now if we look here at this table, we'll see that mark to post is set to 0, and the batch status is also set to 0, wherever that is. But if we look here in GP now, and we're going to close this window and go back into it, we'll see test is now available, and we can get into it. And the next thing you want to do is just hit that print button up on top, print to screen, and kind of see what's in the batch. So we can see here, you'd have to look through it and kind of see what the error was, see what was going on with it, and then determine, what was wrong with that batch. Why did it fail? Usually it's missing some transactions or something like that. So it's actually a nice and easy fix. The next part you want to look at here is the SY00800, and that one is in the dynamics, so let me update this here. This is company in the dynamics table, and that one will be my test company here. I don't think I'll have anyone in it. Dyne 16. So you can see, my own lock record. What can happen though is you will see maybe this record will get stuck, but not in that batch. So what you would do is delete that record based on the user ID that was in it. They'll say someone's editing a batch. Go ahead and delete that record out of there, and if you're 100% sure they're actually not in it, and now they'll be able to actually open up that batch and get into it. The next part here is what happens, you get it all the time, right? Just GPs running slow, just real generic. It's been just slow all day. So a couple things you can do is look for what's called long-running queries, and you can run an SP who-to. So those are both SQL statements here. So we'll start with the SP who-to. It's just a stored procedure, who-to, and we run that, and what that does is this shows us all of the connections and their activity that are currently in SQL right now. And if it's running slow, a good thing to look for is this block by column right here. You can see if someone is in there actually running a statement that maybe is, taking up a bunch of CPU time and blocking other users from doing things. So this will say, maybe blocked by 41 or something like that. So at that point, say this was 41, you would go back and look at what the FPID of 41 is, figure out who's running that, and you kind of follow it back to the start. Then you can determine, where that person's at, who's running it, what's running it, and then, do you have a process that's hung? Do you have a user that's running a giant report? How many times has a user run a MO activity report on, 50,000 items and, wanted to get everything for the last 10 years or something like that, right? And all of a sudden they're generating a report with 50 million rows. Something like that will slow your system down. So this is a great place to kind of get in there and see, the CPU time and the disk I/O. You'll see those spike as those huge reports run. You'll see these in the tens, the 20s, 30s of thousands of seconds. So this SP-Who2 is a great place to start. Look for those blocks. Look for that high CPU time and disk I/O. The long-running queries, what you can do is you can actually right-click on your SQL server and select your activity monitor. And then you can look for like expensive queries and active expensive queries. And you can see in there, maybe someone's running a report or something like that. You'll be able to see, which database is being hit, what that query is, and sometimes you'll be able to see like the user ID and things like that as well. So you'll know if, maybe your, maintenance manager is running some kind of huge report or something like that, or someone in accounting is running a year-end process or something like that. You'll be able to go in there and see typically, what's that big process that's slowing things down. Another real common one for performance issues, when they say it's running slow, is the reports dictionary location. So are your reports dictionary shared over the network, or are they local to your machine? If you have users that are complaining it's just always slow, a great test is to just eliminate that network completely and move those reports.dic and forms.dic, anything that's modified, to the local computer if they are shared. So in your dynamics.set file, you can actually change those paths. Let me just show you this here and point that to a local directory instead of a network shared here. So let's see, go to Microsoft Dynamics, GP 2016 here, and then dynamics.set. Just open it with Notepad. And what you want to do is down here at the bottom, you'll see like this reports.dac. So in my case, mine is running from a local directory. But say this were a network share, you would have something like GP server /reports/reports.dic, right? And it's always running slow for them, and they can't get anything done. So what you want to do is copy this reports.dac file, and remind them, hey, that you won't see any changes now. If people make a change to that shared dictionary, they're not going to see them. They're going to be a local copy of it. So it's a snapshot in time of what it was when you made that copy, and throw it in their local directory. So what you can do then is change that to match the format of of one of these directories here. So let's say we're going to put it in that data directory. So you would copy that into the data directory, change it so it points to data here, copy the reports dictionary into that data folder. You would drop it in here, paste it in there, and next time they launch GP, now everything will be running, or their reports dictionary will be running on their local copy. Now, if things are super fast for them, we know, okay, well, something's going on with their network. Why is it slow? Or are they on a 10 meg connection instead of a 100 meg, or maybe they don't have a gig connection, or they're running Wi-Fi or something like that, right? So it's a good, quick, simple way to do some quick troubleshooting before you need to get us involved. The next part here is your updates on GP. So how often have you wanted to do your hot fixes, your third-party updates, and you've got maybe 20, 30, 40 clients out there, and you just go around to every one of them, you sit down at the desk, you log in and you navigate out to the share and you double click the file and you install it, and then you run through the install process and then on to the next, and then you do that for all your machines, right? I don't know if you guys were aware, and I don't know why it's not advertised really that much, but there is a built-in tool in GP that you can use to update for hot fixes, third-party updates, like a chunk file, things like that. So the MSI and MSP files, you can deploy these with this. So if you go to Tools, Setup, System, and Client Updates, I set one up here just to show you. Client Updates. I called mine the January hotfix here. So what this would do is, you have to have a UNC path to the share that everyone has access to. So you don't want to put it in a lockdown location that users that log into GP won't see it at, but in a public share that they can get into. So they would say, this is marked to update clients at next use. So if a client tries to log into the system and the server is at, at version, whatever I'm at right here. So I'm at version Dynamics GP 16.00.0579. So what's going to happen now is if a client logs in and says, oh, I'm not at that version, I better get this installed, it's going to go out and grab this file, copy it locally, and do the install automatically. It's going to prompt the user and says, hey, you need to install an update. Would you like to do that now? If they say no, it just closes GP and they can't proceed. So there's no risk of them actually going in there and not running an update, and then all of a sudden you have old data combined with new data and possible corruption, things like that. So they just can't get into the system until they actually do it. So you can put these updates in the power, in the user's hands at this point. So next time they log in, it's going to say, hey, you need to update. What would you like to do? You click on yes. It'll close out a GP. It'll start installing that update. It'll prompt them to run utilities if they need to. It'll prompt them to restart GP. It's a pretty slick program. And so, like I said, it works great for these, year-end hotfixes, the service packs, things like that. Also works great for chunk files. So if you're deploying like a third party, like a Wensoft or a SmartList Builder or anything like that, Willowware, all those third-party products out there that have a chunk file, you can actually do the same type of thing and drop that CNK file out into a shared location, and then it'll just copy it in. So when they launch GP, they'll say, hey, we need to run an update. Click yes, and it'll prompt them to include new code. All they got to do is hit yes, and off they go. So super easy to use. The only issue I've seen so far is anything with like VB and things like that. It doesn't work the best with copying those add-ins into the DLLs and stuff like that into those add-ins directories. So little issues there, here and there, but for the most part, your big updates, it works great for that type of stuff. So next, some of the general maintenance, kind of wanted to go over in your GP utilities. Adding sample company data or Fabricam. I'll just launch utilities here. Let's see here, Dynamics, utilities. Now I've already got Fabricam deployed, obviously, for my demo purposes and things like that. You have to log into GP for utilities as SA. Sometimes you can do it as DynSA for certain items, but big things like creating companies and things like that, you need to actually be SA. First thing utilities does is just make sure you're at the same version as what the server is. So it'll do a quick check, and then it'll give you a drop-down menu with all these options here. So the first one is going to be add sample data company, or add sample company data. In my case, it says re-add. So I've already got it deployed, so I can basically redeploy it if I would like to. Next is creating company. So this is where you would go if maybe you acquired a new company or you're starting a new company. You would go in here and you would select create a company and hit process. And now remember, you want to hit process, not the like launch Dynamics GP or something like that. So you hit process. It'll ask you for your company name, your database name, ask you some questions, things like that. Standard company, setup, things like that. We've got I think we have some webinars on that if you're more interested in that. Remove the SOP and invoicing messaging. So that's where if you have an invoice in both sides of the system, it'll prompt you, say, hey, just so you know, this invoice number's on SOP and on this side here. So this can remove that invoice or that message. You can update your modified forms and reports. So that's one of the last things you want to do when you do an upgrade, right, is update those modified forms and reports through utilities. So you make sure that you have your everything up to date, the right version numbers, things like that. This will prompt you to point to the set file, and then you select your set file. It'll determine if you have to do any type of update. I just did one to kind of show you here. What you would do is actually point to your previous dynamics.dic, or whichever piece of software you're updating, so whether it's maybe HRMSS or third party or something like that, you point to the previous dictionary file. Hit update. It'll go through and do its updates, and you can see here that there was really nothing for me to update on this one because it was just a service pack, and I don't think I had anything custom anyway. So it would go through and fail because I probably have GP open here yet, don't I? Let's mark it again, update. And that was it. It says that it was finished. I got a nice green check mark. So nothing really to that. When you have lots of customs and things like that, it'll have a bigger process. Synchronized forms and reports dictionary. So this is where it'll grab the account framework and things like that, and make sure that everything matches between your system and your clients, and go through and just make sure that there's no discrepancies and things like that. Manage the web client, SQL Server login. So if you're familiar with the web client uses a single login for that client to talk to GP, but then your user ID is based on your Windows credentials once you're actually into the system. So the client itself will talk to GP with one user, but your authentication is still done through GP and Active Directory at that point. So this is where you would set that up to actually what it uses to talk to SQL, and then manage user authentication. That's where you set it up to the authentication for the web client. If you're going to use like Windows accounts or an organizational account for Windows Azure. So that's basically it with the utilities. Lots of power behind it. Mostly what you guys use it for, I'm sure, is going to be the creating a company or adding sample data, things like that. The next part is your general maintenance is going to be your maintenance plans in SQL. I typically set up two different types of maintenance plans. One would be for daily and one would be for weekly. Daily, I will always start off with a check DB integrity. I'm going to do my daily backups, typically just a full backup a day, and then my cleanup of anything maybe over 4 or 5 days, depending on your customer. So that way you don't have 400 backup files sitting there taking up space. That's not needed. And then the same for weekly. What I'll do is I always start off with that database integrity. I'll back up the system databases once a week. I'll put them in their own directory. I'll rebuild indexes, update statistics, and then I'll do lots of cleanup on that week as well. I'll show you a bit of those on the maintenance plans here. My daily full backups are pretty straightforward. Now, of course, these are for a small company that we don't have a ton of transactions. If you're using thousands of transactions, you probably want to use maybe multiple full backups, or you'd use like transaction log backups, things like that, throughout the day. So in this case here, the database integrity is the key one that I always try and run. Helps with performance. And then my daily backups, I'll always run them for all user databases, almost all in most cases. Sometimes I'll be selective and pick specific databases, but it depends on the scenario again. And then I almost always create a subdirectory for each database just so they have their own folder, and I can easily pick out which databases I want to restore if I need to. And then the BAK extension, and then in this case I have compression turned on. So the maintenance cleanup task, I have this set to clean up those files in that backup directory, include first sublevel folders, so that'll go into each of those directories and look for that BAK extension. If it's older than 5 days, it's going to delete it. So if you'll notice here, I have the first one, the check database integrity, set to completion for the next task, while I have the backup task, maintenance cleanup, set to success. So what I didn't want to happen here was the database integrity to fail. So completion means whether it fails or just finishes, stops completely. So I didn't want the backups to not run because the database integrity wasn't successful. So in this case here, the database integrity just has to complete. Usually it's going to be successful, but even if it's not, it's still going to get a backup. But I also have my maintenance cleanup tasks set to success, because I don't want to start deleting backups when a backup has failed halfway through, so it sees it as complete. So if I were to set this to complete, it could see that as the process is done, let me delete the next backup. So now all of a sudden 5 days later, you haven't had a good backup in 6 days, now you have no backups at all. So I'll set that to success just to make sure that it's only cleaning up good backups that are no longer needed. And now if we go back into the weekly maintenance, this is a little more complex. I'll have a lot more tasks in here, but a bunch of these are cleanup as well. So the check database integrity again, I'll do a backup database for all the system databases. And what I do for those typically is I will set a system DBs folder, and then I will usually make a subdirectory for each of those as well. Turn on my compression if needed. System DBs are usually pretty small, so I typically don't do that though. I'll rebuild all the indexes. I'll update statistics. This will be on all databases, so not just system, but on everything. Same with the update statistics. And then I'll start doing some maintenance cleanups. So I'll clean up those system DBs. Again, anything over 2 weeks. So since I'm doing them once a week is all I'm backing those system databases up. I'm just keeping the latest 2 good ones. And then the next one I'll be doing is cleaning up the log files. So I'll be going into the log directory, cleaning any text files in there. And then the last one will be the history cleanup task to remove, old jobs and things like that, maintenance plan history, anything that's older than 4 weeks old. Just so it helps things, slim down and run a little quicker. And then the last thing I usually do on these, I guess I didn't really go into, but I always set the reporting here to extended information. So that way, if you do have a failed backup or something like that, it gives you a little more detail as to what happened. And that's key to having these maintenance plans, is history cleanup and the log file cleanup in there, because those logs can be pretty extensive then. What else do I have? I think that is about it. General maintenance. I have a great Word document on refreshing your test companies. So if that is something you're interested in, I can show you how to do that. I won't go into it too much today because we're kind of running out of time here. One thing to remember with refreshing a test company is management reporter comes into play here, and you end up pulling your hair out if you forget about it. Trying to restore that live data over your test data with management reporter running is just not going to happen. So make sure you always stop your MR services before you do that restore. And then of course, make sure you change your database names and things like that, your logical file names, because you don't want to overwrite your live data. Like I said, that Word doc that I have has full instructions. I'd love to send it out to you guys if you're interested. Just get a hold of me. I'll give you my contact information next. And then once you're done with the refresh, you basically run a script, and into GP you go. I'll bring that up here real quick. No, I won't. Other than that, let's see here. If anyone has any questions, here's my email address and our phone number out here. Again, I'm a senior consultant with Implementation Specialist. We do this on a day-to-day basis. We set up all these maintenance plans and whatnot for most of our customers. So if you have any questions at all, just give us a call. We'd love to help you guys out, and we're here for you. All right. Thank you guys all. Have a great day. If anyone does have any questions, if you want to shoot us an email or give me a call or anything like that, we'd be more than happy to take those calls, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you.